We get so focused on the future need for more water that we don't recognize that the right amount of water is already present and available for us to sprout. Hello, friends. I'm Matthew Pilling, Chief Overthinker with a Pilling Perspective, and today we're in the 9th video in our gratitude series, and we want to overthink a little bit about gratitude and our possessions. Now, in the previous videos in this series, and in other times that I've spoken and written about gratitude practices, it probably sounds like I'm saying that gratitude for our possessions is a very baseline level of gratitude, that it tends to be very shallow, that it may not even be a worthwhile activity. And I need to clarify here that that is not the case. We need to be grateful for the things that we have. But as I work with people on deepening their gratitude, as I work with people on really building their gratitude muscles, I do want to distinguish the difference between being grateful for possessions and potentially therefore building connections to possessions, which can be a very worldly thing, and instead being grateful for people, being grateful for the message that people are communicating to us by giving what they are giving to us, and in connecting with people instead of possessions, deepening our soul and deepening their soul as well. I hope you can see there's a difference there. That is not to say that gratitude for our possessions is not important. It's very important. And we'll get into two major reasons why it's important, both of which I want to illustrate with stories, with things that have happened to me. I recently have had the chance to work with someone who was born into the foster system. And being born into the foster system, they've never really had family, because they were bounced from foster home to foster home, and unfortunately from abuse scenario to abuse scenario. And when they turned 14, they had had enough. They decided that they were going to break free from all of that, and they ran away, and then spent the next several years on the streets, and not having had positive role models, not having had positive mentoring of any sort. Being on the streets led to getting into everything that's involved in living on the streets. I met this person after they had recently been released from prison because of everything that had come into their lives from living on the streets. But in prison, they had made some decisions. They had made some choices that they wanted a different life. They wanted to be a different influence in the world. And they've stuck to that. They've done a really good job at it. And so I met them at a very unique point because I was aware of their rap sheet. I was aware of their history. But I was amazed at their soul, at their spirit, at their energy. And I had an opportunity once. Well, let me describe it this way. Winter has set in here in Utah. Snow is flying. And there was a night, I didn't realize how far they lived from work. There was a night when we were done working where I also didn't realize they didn't have a vehicle. They were walking home. The next day they came to work and their face looked wind burnt. Like there was just that look of someone who hasn't just been out in the cold, but has been severely affected by it. And I asked them about it and found out that they had walked a little over 6 hours in a snowstorm to get home. And I thought, wow, that is horrible. And I immediately told them, okay, you're not walking home tonight. I'm taking you home. You may have to wait for me to close some things out at the end of the day, but I'm taking you home. And as we were driving home together, and just got talking a little bit, I asked them, what was that like last night? How bad was that? And they said, oh, it was bad. It was cold. It was not pleasant at all. But partway through clouds had parted a little bit. The snow had stopped. And they said, I looked up and I saw the stars and I just thought, I'm breathing not stale, not prison air. I'm breathing fresh air. And I have a job. I'm so blessed. And not long before that, I had been whining to myself about the fact that the heat in the seat in my car, the seat heater, had stopped working. And it was just such a stark contrast to me. I sometimes, in the grind of trying to build a lifestyle for my family and trying to provide for them, do get focused on the things that we lack rather than the things that we have. And this individual just opened my eyes so wide to the idea of needing to be more grateful for the physical possessions that I have, for the things that I have. They were super happy with their life, and they have hardly anything right now. And it's a lesson I've learned multiple times, but it's one that's worth repeating, and it's one that I do think we don't even need to meet someone who's in those kinds of conditions to be able to survey what we have and start being grateful for it in a way that does change us. It's very important that we are aware of our blessings. The second story I wanted to share is one that happened right at the beginning of COVID. It was early spring. It was the point in the year where the house warms up every day a little uncomfortably, but it's not quite warm enough yet to turn on the air conditioner. And at night it gets cold enough you'd still want the furnace available. So I was in a job that I didn't like, and we were all sent home. So I was working from home where I didn't have an office space of my own. So I was sitting on the bed in our bedroom, making phone calls that I didn't want to make and just not enjoying it at all. It was not ideal conditions, and I was very focused on the fact that it was not ideal conditions. The kids had also been sent home from school. They had finished their schoolwork for the day and had decided that they were going to go play in the backyard. Now, it was, like I said, that point of the year where the house warms up to the point of being uncomfortable, and our bedroom gets really warm because it's west facing. And typically the solution to that would be to just open the windows. But because I was making phone calls and the kids were outside playing, making noise, I knew I couldn't do that. They had also somehow convinced their mom to let them use the fire pit. And I didn't want all of the smoke smell coming in and making our clothes and our bedding and everything smell like it was a campfire going on in our house. So I knew I couldn't open the windows. So I just sat there stewing in it. I was making these calls I didn't want to make. It was super warm. It was super uncomfortable. And I was just angry about it. Really, really focused on what was missing, what was lacking. I wanted a better job. I just wanted things to be different. And in the middle of all of that, my wife needed something from the bedroom. So she slipped in, grabbed what she needed. And then as she was leaving, she just kind of signaled, wow, it's hot in here. And then she tapped the switch on the wall and turned on the ceiling fan. And all of a sudden, my problem was solved. I mean, it didn't magically get me a new job. It didn't magically fix all of the things that were frustrating me. But the impetus to all of that, the catalyst, the heat, suddenly was resolved. And it actually resolved fairly quickly because of that. And it's interesting because that ceiling fan was a possession that we owned. It wasn't purchased and installed right then and there because the problem existed. It was there the whole time that I was suffering through that problem. And if I would have just taken a moment to look at what I'm grateful for and what I have already, instead of focusing on all of the reasons why this was a horrible situation, I could have solved that problem for myself significantly earlier and potentially pulled myself out of that spiral before it had gotten too bad. My cousin Carrie Burchell is a coach that works with organizations in helping adults work well together in the workplace. And she often does problem-solving sessions with the companies that she's working with. And she always starts them by saying, the solution is already here in the room. And she's focused on hearing the people and what they have to say. But I want to say that that is true in regards to our problems. We have what we need already. I've heard Leslie Householder explain before the idea that an acorn doesn't have the power to pull any of what it needs to itself. It can't go out and hunt for water and for minerals and nutrients. It just sits there in the ground. It's just there and has to wait for all of those things to be brought to it in order for it to sprout and fulfill its purpose of becoming a tree. And she says sometimes we get so focused on wanting the water that we need to sprout, or the minerals, or the nutrients, or the air, or the sunshine, that we don't actually recognize what already has been brought to us. We get so focused on the future need for more water that we don't recognize that the right amount of water is already present and available for us to sprout. As we get into looking at our possessions, especially in this Thanksgiving season and as we lead into this Christmas season, where physical possessions play such a huge role in a season that really isn't meant to be about possessions at all, I do think it's important to spend some time looking at what you have and really figuring out, why are you grateful for it? What difference does that make in your life? What would your life be like without it? And you may find that that leads to some things revealing themselves as not that needed, not that useful. Let those things go. Help them become part of someone's life who does need them. And in the meantime, focus on the things that are blessing your life, that are serving you, and recognize that as you focus on giving thanks, you're actually putting yourself in the right position and the right energy to also receive. As you focus on the possessions you have, don't let it turn into a comparison game. Don't let it turn into a scarcity activity. Look at the things that you have and figure out why and how they bless your life and why that matters, and write it down and focus on that, and you will find that it makes a difference. Thank you for being here. As always, if this is helping you, feel free to share it with others who need it as well. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.